Hey, this is Anney
and Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff Mom Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio.
And welcome to another edition of Monday Mini. So, as the world is ever evolving and changing, we want to try to be as informative as possible, helping to dismantle some of the misinformation and disinformation. So we thought we would take a closer look, I guess a brief look, not a closer look, but a brief look at the different executive orders being thrown out there like spaghetti on the wall to see what sticks, right? And what organizations are doing to fight it. So we want to talk about both of those processes because we've heard a lot of the bad. We're not hearing who is fighting and doing what. And to be honest, we're not sure all the time who is doing what, but we're trying to keep it together. Yeah, and with that, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, it is February 7th, 2025. And yeah, content warning. We're going to talk about what is happening in politics and administration here in the U.S., and this is specific to the U.S. So sorry in advance, but these are things that we have to keep track of. I hope when we listen or look back onto this in the future days that we can laugh about it and say, oh, that was a weird time. I'm so glad that we're not there now. That's what I want to hear. But you know what? We'll see. So as a quick refresher or maybe a first time knowledge for you, because honestly, I don't know much about executive orders because I did not care to know. And that's sad on me. But now it's very important that we know what are executive orders and how is it used. So here's some information from the ACLU. Article 2 of the Constitution vests the president with executive power over the government, including the obligation to, quote, take care that the laws be faithfully executed. An executive order is a written directive assigned by the president that orders the government to take specific actions to ensure, quote, the laws be faithfully executed. But with that, these orders, quote, cannot override federal laws and statutes. So I'm saying quotes because this is from the actual article that they are quoting. So this is all from the ACLU, but the quotes within it are from the article in the Constitution, just FYI. Mm-hmm. They go into more detail about what the president can or cannot do. They say, with an executive order, President Trump can order the federal government to take any steps that are within the scope of the constitutional authority of the executive branch and do not violate any federal law. They go on, the president cannot use an executive order to sidestep those checks and balances. And the president can't or cannot, just to emphasize, take over powers from other branches, such as the power vested in Congress to pass new statutes or in the courts to invalidate certain laws as unconstitutional. So those are some things that we need to remember. And again, yes, we are technically on a checks and balances. But if it's all swayed to one side, it's a little scary. Anyway, so with that part out of the way, what are some of the orders that could be harmful? One of the first that Trump signed was the order to rescind the Civil Rights Statute. More from that ACLU article, they write, President Trump's order rescinding Johnson's order concerning civil rights obligations of federal contractors, for example, doesn't overrule any statute that governs equal protection in employment. Even so, it undermines civil rights protections and sends the signal that federal contractors won't have the same obligations to protect their employees, and it communicates to the public that equal protection is not a priority. So in this conversation, a lot of things can be underneath this, but one of the big things that you do need to understand is that they cannot just discriminate, even though it kind of sounds like they can, because we can still, we as the people, sue for discrimination. That is a thing that can happen and actually is happening. So keep that in mind. We can still fight it. But there are ways to counter these, and there are those who are doing so. As I said, lawsuits. So from NBCnews.com, as of Tuesday, February 4th. So the timing. I know by the time this is published, things are changing, as in fact, there's conversations about the Department of Education and whether or not he's about to do an executive orders, which he has threatened all along. And people are kind of preparing for that. We don't know yet. As we are recording this, I'm sure that's going to change probably by the end of the day.
Yeah.
Dear God. But from the article from NBCnews.com, and they have actually an ongoing, almost live updates of all of the executive orders if you want to go check it out. But as of Tuesday, because I wrote this earlier, February 4th, Trump has signed over 50 executive orders, which is the most the president has signed within their first few weeks in office in the past 40 years. So he sure loves to sign things.
Yep.
So here are some of them as we know it. And again, there's over 50, so I'm not going to tell you all of them. And some of these are under broader executive orders. So when he signed that whole DEI thing, it's under that civil rights thing that we talked about earlier. So one of them is called the American First Policy Directive to the Secretary of State, which instructs the secretary to bring the America First foreign policy. So meaning like some foreigners is about us.
Yep.
As he's simply put. Defending women from gender ideology extremism and restoring biological truth to the federal government. Man. It declares that the U.S. policy recognizes two sexes, male and female, directs federal agencies to use the term sex, not gender, and to ensure federal personnel records and government-issued documents such as passports, quote, accurately reflect the holder's sex. Directs agencies to ensure federal funds, quote, do not promote gender ideology. Bars federal funds from being used for gender transition healthcare in prisons and mandates, quote, privacy in intimate spaces. To ensure that single-sex spaces are designated by sex and not gender identity. A federal judge has issued a temporary restraining order blocking the Bureau of Prisons from moving transgender prisoners or cutting off gender-affirming care while a lawsuit continues. So, again, there's a lot of lawsuits happening that we're not hearing about, and you have to remember that because that's hope.
Yeah.
Moving on to another one, ending radical and wasteful government DEI programs and preferencing. You know, when I hear people talk about this, it feels like the new, reverse racism argument.
Yeah, it does.
You know, it's really gross. So this is supposed to end all diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility programs. And that accessibility part is really big that people are leaving off. Policies and mandates across the federal government, revising union contracts and employment practices to end them as well. It also directs the government to terminate all positions related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Big key to this is, again, that accessibility conversation, and then also the fact that the DEI includes veterans, older generations, all of those. And most of the people, again, who have actually advanced or had advantages based on these preferences or based on these programs, white women. But hey, moving on. Another is ending the weaponization of the federal government. Calls on the Attorney General and other federal agency heads to review all civil or criminal enforcement activities as well as intelligence actions taken during the last administration to see if any actions were taken solely to punish political opponents and requests recommendations for, quote, appropriate remedial actions where applicable. Weird.
Yep.
I feel like the call is coming from inside the house. No?
Yeah.
No. But, that's what they do. Gaslighting. Establishing and implementing the president's Department of Government Efficiencies. All right. I know a lot of us have already heard of this. And I refuse to say the acronym. I will not say it. I will spell it out before I say it. It's kind of like calling the other platform the new name instead of Twitter. I'm still calling it Twitter.
Yeah.
It renames the United States Digital Service, the U.S. DOGE service. Yeah, I said it. And creates guidelines for this new organization aimed at, quote, modernizing federal technology and software to maximize government efficiency with an oligarch, whatever, with a rich billionaire not from the U.S.
Yeah.
Who's also trying to intervene in, is it the UK? Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Initial recessions of harmful executive orders and actions. It repeals, as I say, dozens of Biden-era executive orders, including the task force aimed at reuniting migrant families, orders around COVID and racial gender equity and climate change and certain protections for LGBTQ people and asylum policies. The repealed orders include dozens issued by Biden in his final weeks in office, including orders reworking department orders of succession, blocking certain oil and gas leases, and removing Cuba from the list of state sponsors of terror. Yeah. Another example is protecting the meaning and value of American citizenship. Tells government agencies not to issue documents recognizing citizenship to people born to two parents who do not have a lawful permanent residence or citizenship in the United States. The order goes into effect 30 days after signing, but it has been temporarily blocked. Just as a reminder. Yeah, this is about that birthright citizenships, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. We have another one. Restoring names that honor American greatness, because this is important. Reverts the name of the Denali to Mount McKinley. White people. After the name was changed by then President Barack Obama in 2015 and renames the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America in federal references.
All right.
We have unleashing Alaska's extraordinary resource potential. Calling to, quote, maximize the development and production of natural resources in Alaska. This order speeds permitting and leasing for energy projects in the state, expedites the development of liquid natural gas production, and removes some regulations on the industry, among other things. We're going to destroy the world. Moving on. Ending illegal discrimination and restoring merit-based opportunities. Yeah, same thing. Ends diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in federal agencies. Instructs the Attorney General and the Office of Management and Budget Director to submit a report within 4 months with recommendations on discouraging DEI programs in the private sector. The Attorney General and the Education Secretary also have 4 months to issue guidance to educational institutions about complying with Supreme Court decisions that struck down affirmative action programs in college admissions. You know, it seems to me most of the colleges have been really eager to let these go. So I don't think that's going to be a problem for most places.
Yeah.
Enforcing the Hyde Amendment revokes 2 of Biden's executive orders on abortion access, which sought to ensure safety at clinics and pharmacies, established an interagency task force on reproductive healthcare access, assisted states with legal protections for out-of-state patients, explored access to services through Medicaid, and called for improvement on research and data collection on reproductive health access. That's bad. All of this is bad.
Mm-hmm.
Ending radical indoctrination in K through 12 schooling. Instructs cabinet heads to develop a strategy within 90 days to eliminate federal funds from being used for, quote, discriminatory treatment and indoctrination of K through 12 schools, including based on gender ideology and discriminatory equity ideology. Reestablishes the 1776 Commission with the Education Department focused on, quote, patriotic education. And of course, there's tariffs. That has kind of gone back and forth. Because it's like protecting the southern border, protecting the northern borders, what it says. But then and I'm not sure how correct this is. Essentially, he was like, I'm going to increase these tariffs. And both the leaderships in Canada and Mexico were like, bet. Let's play this game. And then them all negotiating. But from what I understand, our administration didn't understand that what the other countries were negotiating was already in place and planned ahead of time, and they just told him again, and he really thought he did something. I could be wrong. Like the soldiers being deployed to the Mexican border, she had already had done that, apparently, as in fact more than he had requested. So I hope she withdrew at least the 10,000 more that she had planned on.
Yeah,
to stick with that lower number. So he's smart. So smart. So again, that's just a few of the many orders that Trump has been busy at signing away. What happens now? So the ACLU explains again, Trump or any president is misusing executive orders authority if the president orders the government to take actions that are not authorized by the Constitution or are in violation of federal laws. That's when the courts must step in to safeguard our rule of law. Courts. This is our only hope. Not only hope, this is one of our biggest hopes, in hopes that they will actually fight and understand the law. I will say Biden, before he left office, made sure to confirm a hell of a lot of the federal judges that I know Trump is trying to fight against real hard. Don't know what's going to happen with that. We'll see. And as we speak, there are several lawsuits already being filed, like we said, and more ahead, as well as federal judges, again, blocking orders. So in Seattle, the federal judge has scheduled the birthright citizenship executive order, and it just happened, I believe. There was a whole recording, him talking about how he will follow the law, no matter what the administration might tell him otherwise. So it was a really great speech, if you can take the time to listen to it, and he was ready. He's ready. From ABC News, U.S. District Judge John Kokenauer in Seattle has scheduled a hearing involving lawyers from the Trump administration, 4 states suing to stop the order, and an immigration rights organization, which is challenging it on behalf of a proposed class of expectant parents. A Maryland federal judge has already blocked a similar order days earlier. Again, this is not the most updated because I believe they just had a second hearing and it's still blocked. Good news. And from that same article, the president's executive order seeks to end the automatic grant of citizenship to children born on U.S. soil to parents who are in the country illegally or who are here on temporary but lawful basis, such as those on student or tourist visas. For now, though, it's on hold. 2 weeks ago, Kokenauer called the order, quote, blatantly unconstitutional and issued a 14-day temporary restraining order blocking its implementation on Wednesday. And on Wednesday, U.S. District Judge Deborah Boardman followed that up with an injunction keeping it on hold long-term until the merits of the case are resolved, barring a successful appeal by Trump's administration. So that one, we are on hold. And by the way, there's 22 other states who have sued to stop that executive order. So there's more people hopping on board. There's also lawsuits in order to block the DEI rollback as well. From insightintoDiversity.com, they write, university professors, diversity officers, and labor advocates have filed a federal lawsuit seeking to block President Trump's recent executive orders targeting DEI initiatives. The lawsuit, filed Monday in the U.S. District Court for Maryland, argues that the orders are unconstitutional and exceed presidential authority. And then it goes on. The plaintiffs in the case include the American Association of University Professors, the National Association of Diversity Officers in Higher Education, Restaurant Opportunities Centers United, and the Mayor and the City Council of Baltimore. The groups are represented by Democracy Forward, a nonprofit legal organization alongside Asian Americans Advancing Justice. So there's a lot of people coming through with this one on board. And then currently, the trans community have also come out with some lawsuits as well. We just had, I believe, yesterday was the new executive order for ban on trans athletes. So from another article, and this one's written by Chiara Alfinesco for abcnews.com. The lawsuit, PFLAG v. Trump, was filed by Lambda Legal, the American Civil Liberties Unions, the ACLU of Maryland, and the law firms Hogan Lovells and Jenner and Block on behalf of PFLAG National, GLMA, and 2 transgender young adults and 5 transgender adolescents. So there's a whole lot of lawsuits coming out. There's a bunch. There's a bunch coming, and there's going to be a bunch more, especially with that trans athlete ban. So the federal employees unions are suing as well. From USA Today, the largest union representing federal employees sued the Trump administration Wednesday to block an executive order that it alleges is aimed at politicizing the federal government by stripping federal workers of job protections. The lawsuit was filed in a D.C. federal court by the American Federation of Government Employees. The union is challenging a January 20th Trump executive order that claims to increase accountability for policy influencing position within the federal workforce by removing certain hiring and firing restrictions. So that is also happening. I don't think there's anything that has gone forward. I haven't seen it. Again, there's a lot that's happening quickly. So if you have some clarification, if you're a federal employee and be like, no, this is what's happening, please let us know. There's also lawsuits regarding the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. From Yahoo News, advocacy organizations and public interest groups quickly filed a handful of lawsuits in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia against DOGE. 3 of 4 lawsuits filed argued that DOGE violates the transparency requirements of the 1972 Federal Advisory Committee Act. DOGE, the lawsuit said, is not a federal department and should be considered a federal advisory committee subject to the FACA law. The law, which was designated to boost public accountability, covers advisory committees that are either formed or utilized by the president, which seems straightforward. I feel like that seems like it should be an obvious. Okay. Quote, operating without complying with FACA, DOGE has already begun developing recommendations and influencing decision-making in the new administration, even though its membership lacks the fair balance required by FACA, and its meetings and records are not open to public inspection in real time, one of the lawsuits say, filed by the groups of Public Citizen, State Democracy Defenders Fund, and the American Federation of Government Employees, Reese. And it continues. Another lawsuit filed by several groups, including the American Public Health Association and the Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, contends that DOGE is a, quote, shadow operation led by unelected billionaires who stand to reap huge financial rewards from this influence and access. Again, I feel like that should have been obvious.
Yeah.
But with all that, we know that there's a lot of misinformation coming from the administration, like saying that there's been so much bribery from USAID, and this is what we've uncovered because they're paying people like Politico. What? And oh my God, Elon Musk has really, really outdone himself in discovering these atrocious law-breaking activities.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there's a lot of ugliness going on. But again, there are a lot of people coming back fighting it. It's not as bleak as it seems. It does feel pretty bleak. There are also special elections happening in the next 30 to 60 days. If you're in those areas, please, please, please let us know what's going on. Let us know what we as people outside of those areas can do to help you and your community, because we know this is about all of us. This is a lot on the line. A lot on the line. I believe Cobb County in Georgia is one of them, actually. I don't know. They have a special election for something, and I don't know because I'm not near there. I should probably look into that. But if you have information, please let us know what's going on. Again, this is ever changing. We're not even talked about the fact. I actually looked up to see if any of lawsuits have come against that Hyde enforcement, and I haven't seen anything. I could just missed it because I know there are so many great abortion access and abortion care organizations and nonprofits who have always been fighting and probably really, really tired and pushed to fight. But I haven't seen anything. So if anybody wants to update us, again, there's only a couple of us trying to look into everything, and it's really hard. So we need your help.
It is. And like you talked about in your happy hour about shock is the point, the overwhelming like news cycle, constant, is changing. One day it's this, one day it's that. It is a lot. So just let us know if you have any more information, if you have any resources, if you're part of an organization that you think is doing amazing stuff, or you know of an organization that's doing amazing stuff. Please write in. You can email us at hello@stuffmomnevertoldyou.com. You can find us on Blue Sky at Mom Stuff Podcast, or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff Mom Never Told You. We're also on YouTube. We have a TeePublic store, and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christine, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts on iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.